Hi there, and welcome to the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door Any Percent English TAS. Alright, so I just started the timer for RTA timing to compare against the current world record by Evan44_. So if you don't know what a TAS is, I'm playing the game on an emulator and using save states and frame advance to create a theoretical run that's near perfect. Mainly just to showcase how fast the game could be played in theory, but with real-time attacks or RTA, you're never going to be able to play with this high precision. It's fun to compare against what you could do in RTA versus what a TAS can do, and I'll be making comparisons throughout the run. You can do a lot of different things in a TAS setting because RNG, which is random number generation, the luck in the game can be manipulated. And you can do whatever input you want on every single frame, so it can get pretty crazy. I like to describe it as a segmented run where the number of segments is approaching infinity, or every frame. So the first thing you'll notice is I'll be jumping everywhere. That's because I'm using a trick or technique, whatever, called speed swapping, where moving up and down in this game is slightly faster than moving left and right. So by moving up or down for one frame and then jumping frame perfectly, that is like the very first frame that you can jump, you do. So Mario doesn't change his speed back to the left and right speed. So you keep that higher speed that you get by going up or down. This fight is pretty standard, done in every category. Just jump, you do the super guard, which is just pressing B, 3-frame window, and it negates all damage that's done to you and usually does 1 damage back to the enemy. That's just the fastest way to do 5 damage to kill that boss. There's loads of tech smashing in this game, and the fastest way to get through it is just smash A and B alternating. So I'm just smashing A and B alternating on every frame. I should also note there's certain points where the video gets a little blurry. That's just the emulation, I think. You noticed it there, but then it just fixed itself. It's only like certain spots in the run, and then it always comes back to normal. Not sure why that happens, but it's not that big a deal. Goombella here. She's a pretty useless partner in terms of like battling, but we do use her a little bit at the first chapter. And actually we use her again in chapter 2. Our main use in a TAS setting is to do Goombella buffers. I'll talk about that later. Yeah, we gotta go over here to break the contact lens just to advance the story. You could like not do this, because you could get to the west side by going through the sewers using a glitch, but it's just faster to do it this way because you need to cross that load zone multiple times, so it's faster than going through the sewers every time. Come in here and buy some fright masks. I'm gonna buy 8 fright masks. We'll keep all the way to chapter 3, and actually we'll save 1 to the very end of the game. And 1 fire flower. I'm talking to this dude just to order the contact lens. Assuming you know that if you're watching this, you've played the game, but maybe not. Notice like I jumped into the cutscene there. That happens like all throughout the run. There's certain cutscenes where you can jump into to sort of get some movement while the cutscene starts, and there's also cutscenes that you can jump out of. So like, there might be like 1 frame window where you can jump. There actually is a trick you could do to skip this sequence here called fence skip, but it relies on manipulating an NPC to go in front of a door, and I tried for like 3 hours to get it to actually save time, but I didn't have any luck with it. It always wasted time. I was trying to at least get it to like break even so I could just show it off, but unfortunately it's just not consistent enough. Maybe one day we'll find a way to consistently manipulate that Goomba in the background there. You need to put him in front of the door with the shine sprite. So down here we're gonna do Goomba Trio Skip, which is just a jump. Looks pretty cool. You can just jump next to that platform and it actually pushes you out of bounds. And then you can jump up the stairs because they extend out of bounds a little bit and get to the pipe. That avoids supposed to be a required fight in the prologue. And that trick is actually English exclusive because the platform doesn't move as far left as it does in the English and like the Japanese version. So I guess I should mention that too. There's 2 any percents for this game: any percent English or PAL, and then Japanese. Japanese has different glitches, and it's like much faster, so we have it as 2 separate categories. And the runs are just completely different, and there's a lot of little differences in the game that makes a difference in the run, so it makes sense to have them as separate categories. This is just plain mode. We need it to continue. But that's all we need from Prologue, so we're just going to grab that and then we're going to leave. Normally you would have to go to the 1000-year door at this point, watch a cutscene, and then kill Blooper, and then advance to chapter 1. But we can do something else. So when you enter areas, there's something called your hazard respawn point, where if you fall in a hazard, whether that's water or spikes or whatever, then the game knows where to put you after. But if you jump on the very first frame, Like you're never on the ground for more than 1 frame, like so. And the panel there, the boat panel, doesn't count towards it, so I can just walk normally. And the game doesn't know where to put you. It hasn't set that spawn point yet, so it just defaults to the middle of the room, coordinate like 0, 0. And that happens to be on that platform, so we can go there to skip. It's very convenient that that pipe is still loaded, by the way. The pipe, we can just jump on it and still enter it even though it's invisible. It's not always like that. Sometimes like the pipe isn't there at all until you actually make it appear in the game. That would be the same for this pipe, if I remember correctly. The pipe that gets you to this castle is there if we could get into that the structure or whatever. But we can't, at least not yet, so we gotta go all the way to the right to get the Sunstone and the Moonstone. We can do a little trick here. We can do the same glitch we did back in Prologue. Just jump frame perfectly across that so the game doesn't set the respawn point. Defaults to the middle of the room, which is the water, and then there's 1 frame to jump out of the water and make it to the right side. And that trick is actually one of the few things that differs in the PAL version that won't work in the PAL version because for whatever reason there's like an extra check with the water and you can't jump out of the water like I just did there. It does work in the Japanese version though, it just doesn't work in the PAL version. It's kind of weird. Talk to the mayor here. These dialogue options don't matter, so I'm just mashing and taking whatever selection I get. So here's going to be a pretty big deviation that what you would do in RTA here. We're actually going to Goombella buffer outside of this room, which is done by using Goombella, waiting 3 frames, and then you have 1 frame to move. So we can actually use that to bypass the loading zone and get around that seam and out of the room without battling the enemies in here. We can do the exact same thing in this room. In RTA, you wouldn't generally go for that because the seam walk is very difficult to do because you need to get on it blindly, first of all, and then you need to maneuver around, which is hard to do. Another big difference that you would see in RTA at this point is collecting star pieces. Normally you would be collecting 5 star pieces to get item hog later, but that's just to increase the chance of getting an item drop later in the run. But since we can manipulate RNG, we don't need to do that. Speaking of RNG, I'm actually doing a little bit of manipulation here because this quiz, it does that ask the question where it's like, are you sure? It asks you that on the 1st and 5th question, but 2 to 4 is random, so we manipulate it so we don't get that question. It would waste a little bit of time. We can do some cool water speed swaps. Which is the exact same as normal speed swaps. I just like doing them in water. I think it's funny. You maintain the exact same speed. We're gonna use the 2 fire flowers that I picked up. I bought one and then I picked up one in Prologue to kill these 2 enemies, or groups of enemies. In old versions of TASs, you could do other strats that involve the crowd, where you could manipulate certain items to speed up the fights. But since we skipped getting Sweet Tree and Prologue, we don't even have the crowd or any star power at this point, so you can't use that. So we just have to do these fights pretty much the same way as RTA would do them. It's actually a bit slower here versus RTA because we don't have another fire flower to use on this fight. So instead, we just gotta do jumps and super guards until Gold Fuzzy's dead. But I will use this Fuzzy Horde to get in danger, which is 5 health or less. And actually end up getting in peril, but that's not relevant. That's just what ended up happening to manipulate the RNG so the Gold Fuzzy hits me and not Goombella. The reason we want to be in danger will become apparent later. So now that we have the 2, the sundial and the moon dial, we can just leave, grab the fire flower, and head to Hooktail Castle. I'm gonna grab another fire flower along the way. We need 2 more for an extra battle when we enter Hooktail Castle. The item route for early game here is planned out in such a way because we have full inventory right now, so it's kind of you don't have much room for items. You only have 10 space, but 8 of those are taken up by the fright masks, so we only have 2 spaces to work with. So once we get this fire flower, our inventory is filled up. And there is another item we want on this screen actually, but I get it later because I can't get it right now because of inventory. We'll grab that. We're not getting coops. Probably noticed that. We'll do something else. You're meant to have coops for this screen to hit these switches in time. But if I jump on the switch and cancel my momentum by pausing, and then do perfect speed swaps over to the other side, you can just barely make it. Just like that. It's really hard to do. It's not RTA viable at all. I don't think anyone's done it in real time. Yeah, that just skipped getting the partner Coops, but we do actually need him for Hooktail Castle in certain locations, and also Chapter 2, but we can get him a different way. Or temporarily get him, I should say. See, we're already like 4 minutes ahead of world record here, so making good time. I'm going to pause here because I needed a break. I was getting kind of tired at that point. No, it's to manipulate RNG. RNG advances every frame when you pause, so it's a good way to manipulate it if it's something really unlikely that you need to manipulate, like this. You see that parakeet that has a power rush. I kill them with the 2 fire flowers, and I can manipulate the drop from him. Grab it, and also grab power bounce. That's pretty important. And then continue on. We waste some time to get that badge, but it's definitely worth it. It increases your damage by 2 whenever you're in danger, which again is 5 HP or less. And this is how we get Koops temporarily. This cutscene just forces him out, even though we don't actually have him. So we have him as long as we don't swap out. Once we put another partner out, then we lose him for good. And there's a little trick with that fight. It's pretty minor, but I'll just talk about the fight right now. We're just going to jump on the red bones. Since we're in danger, we do 4 damage. And then we can just power shell and kill them all really quick. Normally you would do like 2 fire flowers. That overall doesn't save time because like we spent time doing an extra battle with 2 fire flowers anyway, but it saves more time later for fights. Yeah, about the little thing I did with red bones. You can interact with him and then jump again 2 frames later to sort of move away from him, which saves a bit of time during the cutscene, but also you can jump again once the bones pushes you all the way to the left, and it starts the battle early for some reason. I'm not sure why. Okay, we're just gonna get through this area really fast. Pretty standard stuff. A couple tricks there, but they're pretty self-explanatory. It's just a little time saver here. We can hit the switch like that, and then barely have enough time to make it. Normally you would shoot him out to the left and hold him there while you approach the gate, but you could actually have enough time to do it that way. We're just gonna grab paper mode here. And this, with paper mode, you can do these really cool jumps. Really like these jumps. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the TAS in a whole, really. If you like release R and then press A the next frame, when you're moving, you can jump while the game is trying to take you out of the paper mode state. And you can continue that by doing frame perfect jumps, but you also need to hold neutral before you land, so it's kind of double frame perfect. It reminds me of load zone storage in paper mode 64, if you're familiar with that. You need to be neutral before you hit the ground and then press left and A to get some distance. So I'll use them here. And the reason why it's faster is it doesn't waste any time for movement, because you can still move at the full speed swap speed in that state. And you can also let the animation of getting out of paper mode happen later, like during a load zone or opening a door or something like that. So it saves a bit of time in that regard as well. And plus they look really cool. I'm gonna do another pause on that switch to equip badges. I equipped power bounce and the sound effects badge, and it also allows you to make it to that platform without using Koops, so it's a bit faster too. Do a slick cutscene walk here. just moving in paper mode during a cutscene. There's only like certain cutscenes you can do this with. Like we can do paper mode jumps through the window and across here. I can do another pause here. That time I checked an email. If you don't, then the game will like explain emailing to you again later whenever you get one. So we gotta check that. And I grabbed a life shroom. I'll be using that for a glitch later. I need to pick up consumables throughout the run for this glitch. It's called paper mode item jumping. It's a TAS only thing because it requires like frame perfect mashing. Yeah, you'll see that later. I do the first one after chapter 1. Pause buffering out of this battle. Need to pause 7 times frame perfectly to get far enough away from that that enemy so you don't encounter him. So you're supposed to use plane mode in this room, but we can do this instead. Set up coops to first strike the enemy during a jump. And then when I leave the battle, there's 1 frame that you can jump again. Even though you're in the air, you can still jump. And that gives you enough height to make it to the platform. It's called a double jump. Makes sense. Going up that tower is actually faster just to jump, even if you're not speed swapping. I was speed swapping most of the time there, I think, but it's kind of annoying to speed swap there because the stairs like to ruin your jumping, so a lot of the times I just jump normally too, but it's still faster than walking. So this is Hooktail. We have the sound effect badge, so when we do 1 jump, it'll lower her defense. So we do no damage, and then we start doing 1 damage. We can manipulate a 10 bounce. We just don't use coops because it's lower. And then we can manipulate getting an 11 bounce to do 20 damage. Is enough for the first phase, and then for the second phase she only has 10 health, so we just need to manipulate another 10 bounce and then we're good to go. So a note about the power bouncing. You normally have a chance of getting capped at certain numbers. For Hooktail, it's 9. So you can get capped when you hit the 9th bounce. But by using Stylish, you can manipulate that cap, so you can sort of permutate through different Stylish patterns and get the bounce cap that you want. So that's the reason why I'm doing Stylish. It's not just to be stylish, although it does add to the style. It's really convenient that you can change RNG like that.
Oh yeah.
That's chapter 1. This intermission is really, really boring. You should go do something else because there's not much to talk about. For other intermissions, there's at least like something that makes it slightly interesting. But for this one, it's just a bit of movement and text mashing. I guess the only thing worth mentioning here is speed swapping technique we've been using. You can still use that with Peach, but since you can't jump, you do so-called ground speed swaps, where you move up and down for 2 frames instead of 1, and that allows you to maintain the speed for 14 frames when you're moving to the right there, and then you need to move up and down again to get the speed back and repeat. You can do that with Mario as well, but it's faster to do the jumping. I use it sometimes with Mario because sometimes you don't want to jump again because you'll miss a platform, or you might like jump into a cutscene, which wastes a bit of time if it's not a cutscene that you can jump into. And we'll be doing the same speed swap technique with Bowser. It works on any other character that you control that can't jump. You just do the ground speed swapping. It's interesting with this part on the Japanese version, because of the partner followers behave a bit differently. They don't follow as closely. So on this screen you can actually speed swap and cause Frankly to get off of the screen, which is kind of funny, but on the English version he keeps up with you. So I guess I didn't even mention that before, but I'm just so used to it. But yeah, Frankly's still following us. It's because we did looper skip with frame perfect jumping to the water in Prologue. He'll stay with us for another little bit. Just because getting to chapter 1 early like that skips the sequence that he leaves you. So because of that, he just stays with you. It's a shame he doesn't stay with you the whole game, but he does leave in chapter 2. Alright, finally getting back to some regular gameplay with Mario. So because we skipped the cutscene of getting Koops earlier, this cutscene is still here. So there's no way to avoid it, we just gotta watch it. And I'll be getting that second item that I mentioned here before. Forget this email first, and there's a mystery box in the bush behind me there. I want to grab that for a fight in Chapter 2. If you don't know what that item does, it's just it's a random item selection. So you just use it in battle and it chooses a random item. And because we're a TAS, we can manipulate the item that we want so we can speed up the Shadow Sirens fight. So the life shroom that I got back in Chapter 1, we're going to use that coming up here. We can use the paper mode item jump that I mentioned earlier by going into paper mode and releasing paper mode, jumping and pausing, and then using the item frame perfectly allows you to do this glitch to gain extra height. Pause one time to sort the items because it needs to be in the first selection, and then we do the paper mode jump to get up the block. It kind of just like uses the item as you're unspinning, and if you get perfect mashing, you can get the highest height possible. If you don't do perfect mashing, then you fall short. That's why it's TAS only, really. You could get that animation to happen, like just RTA, just by yourself, but you don't get enough height for it to be useful.
Oh.
Oops, sorry, I'm scrolling the splits there. You can hear Frankly jumping. He's outside of the room here as we're talking to the other Frankly. It's also interesting to note with the item usages, there's a glitch you can do in the Japanese version called sort glitch, but you can't do that in the English version. There's a little trick there, by the way. You can like squeeze in between the roof and jump straight to the pipe. It's a little bit faster than going around the block. Did that twice every time I came down there now. But yeah, with the item usages, we can't do sort glitch, which would allow you to like reuse the same consumable in the field. So we need to pick up new ones every time for each paper mode item jump that we want to do. gaining access to Chapter 2 here, nothing fancy. Oops, I'm not supposed to split there. I was thinking, like, we're not that far ahead yet. Because I usually split there for pre-Chapter 2. But I got rid of that because it's kind of blends into Boggly Woods because it's so quick. Yeah, I'll split when we enter the Great Tree. So there's another paper mode item jump that we want to do in Boggly Woods. So I'm going to pick up the honey syrup that's in this screen. This is where we lose Frankly. You notice, like, Frankly's sprite got like taken over. Like, Frankly took over Punio, but then when you go in the background, Punio comes back. I guess because Frankly doesn't have a background sprite to work with. Yeah, now Frankly's gone, so rip Frankly. So after I talk to Punio here, we need to wait for him to get to the top of the tree there. So I just do some paper mode jumps because they're cool. And I'm just wasting time because I need to wait for Punio anyway. Never get tired of these. And when I'm in the background, by the way, jumping is just straight up faster. So right there, there's actually 2 frames that you have to work with before the dialogue shows up. So the way I did it there is actually slower. I just did it because I thought it was funny enough. You can do a little cutscene walk off the pipe, and then we can do the cool paper mode jumps over to the loading zone. The fastest way would just to be simply just do a jump, but that's boring, so. That was actually a little clip to get behind the grass. I call it Tree Clip 2.0, because there's another tree clip that we do in RTA runs. That one is much harder. I'll be doing it again later. We have to backtrack here. So on this screen, I'm going to grab one badge for money later on. Then we're going to set up Koops to do another cutscene walk, like so, which extends that pipe, but we enter the load zone, so we skip most of the cutscene there. We want to extend it so we don't have to keep doing paper mode item jumps up, as we would need to get more items for that. It would also just be slower than going up the pipe and using plain mode. This is the Shadow Sirens fight. The fat yellow one there, Marlin, her name is. She has 12 HP, the rest have lower, but it doesn't matter because we want to kill them all at the same time. So we need to do 12 damage to all of them. And the best way to do that is to use Earth Tremor, which does 6 damage if you do every bar. And then we'll use the mystery box that we got earlier to randomly choose a shooting star, convenient enough, which does another 6 damage, doing 12. And hopefully it doesn't choose a fire flower. Oh no. Okay, we're good. I found that really funny when I did it. I was trying to manipulate it and I was like, fuck, another fire flower, but then at the last second it turns to a shooting star. Grab the necklace for Flurry, and then we can do the tree clip that's done in RTA. By just squeezing yourself in front of this tree, and then you can jump out of bounds, respawning you all the way to the right, so it avoids having to move back to that loading zone. Just use plain mode here. With falling out of bounds, by the way, it respawns you to the last loading zone that you entered. So like if we did that when we first entered the room, it wouldn't have helped, because it would just respawn us right where we jumped out of bounds, so it's pointless to do then. There's another spot where we'll abuse that out of bounds mechanic in pre-chapter 3. Yeah, so we clip again using that tree, and we can go get Flurry. Oh, excuse me.
Oh yeah.
So now that we're obtaining Flurry, Koops is gone for good. We can't swap back to him because we didn't get him in the first place. So say goodbye to Koops. He served his purpose and now he's leaving. There is like other uses you could use him for in like chapter 3 probably, but there's other ways you can get around it and it's not faster to keep him. Yeah, if you're ever wondering, like, why didn't I just use Koops for this thing, it's because we literally don't have him anymore. We only have Gabella and Flurry in our partner menu now. The Great Tree is a pretty interesting section. It's a pain in the ass for RTA because of punies that you get. But in the TAS it's actually pretty cool. because you can just do everything perfectly, and it looks pretty sweet. But there's still a lot of interrupting cutscenes, which I don't really like. Almost 7 minutes ahead. Nice. Not sub 50 though. Terrible. I gotta save 45 more seconds. But during this chapter, we're also gonna get more star points if you want to level up. I'm gonna use Gale Force here. We'll kill these enemies pretty quickly. And that move is RNG, but again, we can manipulate it so they are killed by it. Right now we just have a bunch of cutscenes to get through and head up to the top where the 2 cages are. This cutscene looks kind of weird because I jumped into it. There's one frame that you could jump into that cutscene, so Mario's position is thrown off a little bit. Might have noticed Punio just walking through that pipe. Shoutouts to Paper Mario being funny. It's nothing I did, that's just the game. So this fight, we don't want the XP for this guy. We can get the XP faster by using Gale Force on multiple X-Naughts. You could like power bounce this guy if you wanted to kill him, but we're just going to use a Fright Mask. It's a 100% chance to run away. It's also pretty fast. And I'm going to grab this Ultra Shroom for another paper item jump later. Get the key and then leave. In this chapter, now that we're using some Fright Masks, we open up our inventory a little bit so we can collect some more items that we want to get, which works out really nicely because there is an item that we really want to get here, which is the Power Punch. It's in this bush down there. We're actually going to save this all the way to the final fight in the game, so remember that Power Punch. More cutscenes. Once we get the 10 peonies here, it'll speed up a little bit, and then we'll get all the peonies, 101, and then we can see some cool peony glitching. So I guess I'll start explaining that now. So in this chapter, you're supposed to like travel with the peonies, but we can do what's called peony glitching, which is just usually you do it on 2 different height levels. You fall down and then you can maintain jumping. They don't need to be frame perfect. You just jump and then go into a load zone and you maintain the peonies, even though you didn't actually bring them down there. And you can also do it on level ground, like this next room we're going to do it in, but it's harder. In a TAS setting, you can just sort of manipulate your movement so you don't lose them. We can just jump across here. You'll see like some weird stalling as I'm jumping. That's to prevent the peonies from dropping to 0. And we do the same thing here. I use paper mode off that ledge to cancel my momentum to get to the right faster. And we get down here to the first Jabby fight, which you can actually skip. You can use what's called Jabby Hive skip by Goombella buffering into the load zone that we just came out of. And maneuvering around the seam, you can get into the load zone that's behind the big Hive thing. But it would save time if you only had to travel across this section like 1 time, but we need to backtrack here. And same goes for the 100 fight later on. We need to backtrack to this area once, so because of that you are required to watch the cutscene again where the Jabbies come out of the Hive, so it ends up not being faster. There's also a secondary glitch that happens if you skip this one specifically. I'll mention it later. It's funny to see, but it wastes time. And obviously, it won't happen here. I'll just mention where it happens because I think it's kind of interesting. It's a consequence of Punio teleporting to you whenever you go to this area with the fight. If you didn't complete it, Punio keeps teleporting to you. But anyway, head back up to get the rest of the Punies here. Do some more weird movement here, because the Punies can drop if you're too far away from them. It's not just different height levels. Or different platforms, I should say. Most of the time, if you're on the same platform, you can just speed swap and you're fine. You'll never lose them. But there's certain areas where you can still drop them. It's one of the reasons why this chapter is really frustrating in an RTA setting, because you can just lose Punies for essentially no reason. Actually, on this screen, there's a chance of losing them for no reason. And it's always like right before you enter the pipe. So you'll have 101 here, jump to the pipe, and then it'll drop to like 45 as soon as you enter the pipe. It's really annoying. Head down to the next Jabby fight. We need to cross this Piter room, we call it. And I need to do more Puny glitching because I don't want to have to stun the Piter to get the Punies across with Flurry because it's slow. So I just kind of jump around and manipulate my movement so I don't lose the Punies. I did the same thing there because that's another area where you can lose them. And ended up actually losing them, so I needed to do some more jumping to prevent them from dropping down to like 70, I think it does. Because I didn't want them all for the fight. These fights, by the way, can be improved. This one can be improved by like 3 seconds, I think. And the other one I lost like a second too, but I didn't bother spending that much time to try and optimize them. It was good enough. I sort of like ran around and stunned more fighters as they were doing the fighting to speed it up a little bit. Okay, now we can do cage skip. I'm going to swap to Goombella, do another buffer outside of this load zone. I can get around on the seam, then do some paper mode jumps down to this pipe. And I keep jumping so I don't lose the punies, but need to jump anyway, so you're never going to lose them. It's a really nice skip. That one's done in RTA. It saves like a minute, I think, in this chapter. But it also saves more time later. Puny glitching there is called water switch skip. It skips triggering the water switch to get the punies across that area. Self-explanatory. Alright, so on this screen we're going to grab a mushroom in the bush, or another paper mode item jump, as you probably guessed. So because of the skip we did, where I buffered outside the load zone, we skipped getting the super boots, and we need those to for preparation in pre-chapter 3, and also for chapter 3 itself. But so we're gonna grab that now during the escape. And after we grab it, we need to come back down here because the sequence position has changed. I'll talk about when we get there. You'll notice the music changes, but right now we're in the escape sequence. We're gonna go up, and there's a battle we need to take care of before we get the super boots. And we're gonna be doing this battle twice. Also, shoutouts to Goombella falling through the floor there. First time we're going to use Gale Force to get more XP. And we'll do a different strat. We need a little bit more. We need like to kill one more X-Naut here to level up. Yeah, so we're backtracking over here. This is the reason why, one of the reasons why doing the Hive skip there is not faster, because we need to backtrack. Cool remix music here. So when I leave this load zone, you'll hear the music change. I'll just be quiet so you can hear that happening. You heard the music change there. That's because the sequence position changed. I'm going to go down here. I paused on that jump panel, or floor panel, because it's just faster for whatever reason. It just speeds up the animation. And then I'm just going to use the mushroom with the paper item jump to get charged. That'll speed up the fights later. And then we got to continue back down to where we triggered the escape because of that sequence position when you get super boots. If we went to leave the chapter now, the boss wouldn't be there. We have to go back down here, trigger the escape again. And since the dude starts the timer again, so we get double ticking now. Pretty hype. We gotta do this fight again. Since we have the super boots now, we can just jump on the X-Knot because of the extra damage. We do 4. And then we can use another Fright Mask to take care of the other one, because we don't want the XP from that one. We'll level up BP. So I want to use charge during this boss fight, so right before the boss, I'm gonna equip it. The only place that you can really equip it, like there's no faster spot to pause. At least I don't think so. And you'll remember, we still have the power rush. Or we still have it, it's not equipped, but I'll also equip that when I pause here. Yeah, so we can equip that, and then during the battle, I'll actually get in danger. Right now it's not activated because we're at full health. Yeah, so I equip those. And then he's gonna stop one of the timers, but the second timer is never stopped because we started the escape twice, but we only ended it once. So one of the ticking remains with us for quite a while. There, we're going to charge up, which if you don't know what that badge does, it increases your attack power by 2 for 1 turn. So we can just charge up, and then once we do 1 attack, then the damage goes back to normal after you do that 1 attack. But you can stack it, so I did it twice, so now we have +4. And then I get hit. I'm at 6 health. I manipulated a throw from the crowd to do 1 more damage to be put in danger. And now we have +6 attack, and I can do a 9 cap on the boss to kill him in 1 power bounce. And we're 9 minutes ahead. Good thing we're golding every split, because it would be pretty sad if we didn't. We should gold every split. This intermission is slightly more entertaining than the first. It's mainly just movement still, though. Bowser segment is an actual little like mini game you play, which is nice. This part is just some movement, and we do the dance. I have to wait for that door, so I'm just messing around there. With the action commands on the dance, you only need to hit 10 out of the 16. I'm missing some just for fun, because the animation's kind of funny. So for the Bowser segment, the normal strat you would do is to collect the meats, so you can just walk straight right without worrying about anything. But it's actually like, I want to say like half a second faster if you don't collect any meats, so that's what we're going to do here. You see we get a in-game time of 161 there. If you collected the meats, you get 160. Watch this segment with the poster on the outside of Koopa's house for some reason. It's kind of weird, but whatever. We just want to head straight to the 1,000-year door now to advance the story. We're going to head up there the same way we did before, so we're going to use that Ultra Shroom that I got to do another paper mode item jump. We don't need to go all the way to the right and use plane mode. And again, I need to pause twice. One is to sort the items, because it needs to be the first item in your inventory. And then the second pause is to actually do the trick. Or glitch, whatever you want to call it. There's a couple things we need to do before we actually go to chapter 3. We need to actually like advance the story because we need to get the blimp ticket. Because currently there's no way to gain access to the blimp without it. At least at this point in the game. If we could, it could save a lot of time potentially depending on what you need to do it. That's what people refer to when they say blimp ticket skip. It could potentially skip parts of chapter 1 as well. But yeah, right now we need that ticket, so we need to advance the story to get the ticket. We're also gonna sell some badges to get money. We need to buy another, well, you don't need to buy it, but we're gonna buy another power rush because we want some more damage. And there's another thing that we want to get at some point, which is Mega Rush from Charlieton. I'm gonna get it later though because for less RNG manipulation, or I guess easier RNG manipulation. When I enter the screen now, I'm gonna manipulate Power Rush so that it's on sale, because it's a faster menuing to get it. It's also cheaper, but that's not relevant. We have enough money. Yeah, so I did extra jumps in the Frankly's house or office, so to manipulate Power Rush so it's on sale when we come up to the badge shop here. You see that's Power Rush at the far left badge there. First we're going to sell P down, D up, P that we attained in chapter 2 and the sound effects badge we got in chapter 1. That's plenty of money for everything we need. Down we need to buy the contact lens to gain access to West Side. Again, we could go through the sewers to get over here, but it's just faster to do it this way. As you'll see during this chapter, we need to go through this area multiple times, so if you use the sewers, it would take much longer. Buying these items is just for the story, if you're not aware. We'll actually use the dried shroom for something though later on. That's kind of interesting. We managed to find a use of a forced item that we have to get. So when I leave this room, we're going to do a Flurry Super Slide, which is using Flurry and then pressing A after 3 frames. Similar timing, well it's the exact same timing as a Goombella buffer, but what it allows you to do is use Flurry as you open a door, and that can change your angle. So what it'll do here is actually push us to the right and get us under this room down to the parlor below, which is not loaded, but it's still there. We can exit and then get to the right faster. You'll see the houses in the background, they're all messed up too. We can do another little trick here I mentioned back in chapter 2 when we did tree clip to get out of bounds. We can do another thing here where we talk to the NPC and fall in the water, and then by closing the text box it does something called a fish glitch, which lets you fall out of bounds beneath the water and respawns you back up to that low zone. A little bit quicker than it would be to walk there. I think it saves like 7 seconds. We can obtain the blimp ticket, and then we can do the same flurry super slide when we leave. And the second time it actually saves a little bit more time, because if you leave this area the way you're supposed to, you normally get some dialogue and then an email interruption before you can progress the area that you want to. But by exiting it through the parlor with the slide, we can avoid both of those things. I use that pause to equip some badges, and we come down here. We're gonna head to Chapter 6 for just one time. This is the only part of Chapter 6 you'll ever see. We use the hazard respawn glitch to get on top of this block. Same thing we did in Prologue. Just jumping on the first frame that you enter a room. The game puts you in the center of the room because good programming. That's one of the reasons why we needed the super boots to hit that switch. So by reading that node, it changes our sequence position to Chapter 6. So now that when we enter Chapter 3, it'll skip cutscenes that would normally play. Saves. It's upwards of like 4 minutes that it saves throughout Chapter 3. Even by doing this long detour, it's still worth the time save. I'm also going to blow this poster, or wall, whatever. We're not going to go down there now, but we need to later, and since we have Flurry out now, it's faster just to get rid of it while we have her out, because we don't want to have to swap to her later. That was the blimp ticket that we needed to gain access to this blimp. But once we get to Glitzville, we're actually just going to leave again. That's because since we're in a Chapter 6 state, the game is considering us as this to be like the first time that we're, or the second time I guess. It's in like the post-Chapter 3 state. So if we tried to go to the locker rooms, the guard wouldn't let us in there. He would just be like, "Congrats on beating the chapter, come again." So it expects you to leave, which we need to do, and then we're going to come back, and then we can gain access to the locker rooms to progress in the chapter. So this chapter consists of ranked fights. And there's heavy amounts of RNG with the fights for RTA running. Depending on what condition you get on the fight, you need to fulfill the condition to rank up. And some of them can be really bad, but in a TAS setting we can just get good conditions on every fight, so we don't need to worry about it. Before I came down here, one of the badges I equipped was multi-bounce. I'm going to use that during these fights. This is one area where you can potentially use coops to do things faster, but we don't have them at all, so any fight that we want to kill the enemies, we're usually going to use multi-bounce. And I'm also slowly setting up Peril here. Back when we did, or Danger rather, not Peril. Back when we did HRG to get to Chapter 6, we took 2 damage from the water, and we took another one there from the Goomba that just hits you, first strikes you, because he's a big fat cheater. So currently we're at 7 health. These fights are set up in a particular way with the experience because we want to leave at a specific number of experience, so it doesn't, we don't level up at incorrect times later on. A lot of the fights we're just going to use the fright masks that we bought in Prologue, like this one. And there is more RNG with the fright masks. That's another reason why this chapter is very RNG heavy. So the Koopas don't have a 100% chance of running. That's the Yoshi egg. That's we just get the Yoshi egg because we're in a Chapter 6 state. It's one of the reasons why it's faster, because we don't need to go outside and get the egg the usual way. We're going to frame mask these guys as well. These guys actually do have a 100% chance of running. These cutscenes, by the way, between fights, they're not skipped because it's actually tied to your rank, not the sequence. So by changing our sequence position, it doesn't change the rank that we're on in the chapter, so they still play. So we have the super boots, so we have enough damage to just kill these guys with the multi-bounce. They have 1 defense, but we do 2 damage, so kill them with just a multi-bounce. You could frame mask those guys, but it'd be really hard to do because they each only have a 10% chance of getting frame masks. When I'm waiting for fights, by the way, I'm not like doing anything, because if you jump or hammer or pretty much anything besides walking around on the ground, it delays the time that it takes for the guard to show up. So I just go over and wait for him. Alright, so we're through a lot of the Fright Mask fights we're gonna do. The next fight's a little more interesting. So there's two things we're gonna accomplish in this fight. We're gonna finish setting up danger, and we're also going to gain a little bit more star points to fix our leveling. So there's three enemies in the fight. There's a Piranha, there's a Dark Puff, and there's a Piter. Piter always runs with a Fright Mask, so we don't need to worry about him. But we want the Piranha to run, which is actually a lower chance than the Dark Puff, and we don't want the Dark Puff to run, so I manipulated that weird setup RNG to get that to happen. You don't see very often. I just waste the turn with the partner, and we're gonna get this Dark Puff to hit us to do 2 damage, putting us in danger, and then we can just do a failed jump to kill him. Because now that we're in danger, we have that +4 damage from the 2 power rushes. And the reason why we set up danger is for the next 2 fights. These hyperbolic clefts have a lot of defense, so we need a lot of damage to be able to just multi-bounce them out. And the bomb-oms, we could kill the bomb, or we could do a different strat where we just multi-bounce the bomb-oms, and then they would all attack you. I could just super guard, but doing it this way is a little faster. Normally in an RTA run, you would use a Thunder Rage here that you would get in Chapter 2, but I didn't even pick that up. It's faster just to do it this way. There's 2 more fights in Minor League. The Bandits, which we're just going to use a Fright Mask for. Now we don't want any extra star points now. And also using a Fright Mask is pretty much the fastest way to get rid of these guys. And the next fight is just like a story fight, really. It's just showing that the Armored Harriers are strong as fuck, and you need Yoshi to kill them. So you just go in the fight and run away. It's the fastest way to end it. and then we'll obtain Yoshi. And note about the Yoshi color, you'll notice in the splits I have not green Yoshi. It's because when I did the first TAS, the Yoshi color that I ended up getting was green. I was really upset because that's such a boring, shitty color. But this time it's not green, which I'm really happy about, and it's because it's faster. The Yoshi color is determined by the in-game time. That's because of the way that we obtain Yoshi. Normally it would be determined by the point that you get the egg and the point that it's hatched, or you see Yoshi. But because we don't get it the usual way, it's just based on the in-game timer. So the faster you go, the different color you'll get. It just goes through a cycle of a bunch of different colors. So before I got green, and now you'll see later the color that I get. I won't spoil it. And Black Yoshi. Cool color. Anything but green. And just like that, you see we gain a lot of time over RTA in this segment because of RNG. Yeah, I just named Yoshi Yoshi. You can just press start and the game defaults to the name Yoshi. So we're going to enter the Armored Harrier fight again. This time we're actually going to kill them, but we need FP. Because the only way to kill them is to do 2 gulps. So we need to, I'm going to start the fight, or start the signing up for a fight. Start the timer for the guard to show up, and then I'll go sleep in that time. And I'm staying on the ground as much as possible. You see I moved down there, so I'm not in the air for more than necessary. We'll use 8 FP here, and we need more, but we're gonna level after this fight, so everything will get refilled again. We just need to sleep in the bed 1 time. You could skip sleeping in the bed at all if you had a honey syrup, refill your FP, but I used that for a paper note item jump, so it just ended up working out this way. Upgrade BP again. And that's the last fight of Minor League. So now we're in the Major League. But again, because we're in Chapter 6 state, the game doesn't play the cutscene that would normally take you to Major League. But we can just travel there ourselves. Grab that Ice Storm. I'll be using it on the second fight in Major League. We're only doing 2 of these fights because that's as far as we need to rank up. Because all we need from this is the Super Hammer and Yoshi, but you get that anyway. the Japanese version, you don't need the Super Hammer because you can get the Ultra Hammer early instead. So you would just leave as soon as you get Yoshi, but in English we need Super Hammer, so we're going to rank up to that point and then we can leave. After we de-rank, but that's another thing I'll talk about. This fight's just Gulp and Super Guard. They have 5 HP. So I just use the Super Guard to do that last bit of damage. And starting from this fight, I'm actually going to start failing the conditions because we want to de-rank. And I'll explain why we're de-ranking when we come back to this chapter. But yeah, we just need to de-rank. So I don't want to, if I fulfill this condition and kill the enemies, I would go to the next fight, which is the Shell Shockers. But I'm gonna not appeal 3 times, that was the condition. So I'm failing the condition, but still killing them because I need to kill them to trigger getting the Super Hammer. Use the Ice Storm, and now we can get the Super Hammer. Movement will mainly consist of riding Yoshi now. You haven't guessed that already. It's just the fastest way now that we have Yoshi. If we're moving like a little bit of space, like right there, it's not worth using Yoshi, obviously, because of the time of getting on him and getting off. We got the Super Hammer. We need to continue the story for another little bit, just to make it so we can go sign up for fights again. We gotta go in here and get the dubious paper. I'm charging up the spin hammers in the air, by the way. It's not really faster, but it's kind of cool to do. When I leave this area, there's actually one frame where you can jump during the little cutscene of the guard moving back in front of the door. I didn't actually know about this until I did the first TAS. I didn't use it in the first TAS, I figured it out after. So in this one, I get to do it. And then riding Yoshi over to the door is still faster. So for the next three fights, we're just gonna go fail the condition and run away. So I'm manipulating conditions to be like appeal 3 times or take damage 5 times. Ones that can fail just by running away. A couple that are really bad to get during this D rank for RTA. You can get win before taking 20 HP of damage, which is really bad because that means to fail that condition, you need to take 20 HP of damage, which obviously takes a long time. And then the other one, which is equally as bad, if not worse, is to fail it, you need to just wait around for 5 turns. The condition is finish the fight within 5 turns, so to fail it, you need to wait 5 turns, which is obviously incredibly slow. For this fight, the condition doesn't actually matter, because as soon as you fail this fight, you're put back in minor league. We are going to use this fight to get closer to Peril, to set up for the boss. I'm just going to waste my turn there and get hit. So we're at 2 HP for a reason that we'll see later. But before I come back here, I want to be at 1 health, because we're going to get Mega Rush, which is 5 extra damage when you're in Peril, which again is 1 HP. Now we get a lot of extra damage when we're in Peril, because we get 5 from Mega Rush and we get 4 from the 2 Power Rushes that we have. Yeah, now that we rank down, back down to minor league, and now we can leave. We're going to head back to chapter 2. Sorry to show this awful chapter again, but faster. May not seem faster, but doing this will skip every fight in the, or most of the fights in the major league. And also all those cutscenes in the Major League. So I did some jumps in the previous screen there to manipulate RNG, so that Mega Rush shows up with Charlieton here. But we don't need to HRG here since we have the hammer now, Super Hammer. It would be slower to HRG as well, so just break it and then we had to wait on this platform cycle. The reason we're going back here is because there's a floor panel that we skipped breaking when we did Cage Skip. It was the Goombella buffer that we used in this chapter. So since we didn't break that, it's still there, so we can go break it now. And what that'll do is set our sequence position back to this chapter. Speed swapping across there is actually faster because hovering on Yoshi is really slow to cross those gaps. So this is where we did Cage Skip. skips the sequence with this cage here, so this panel's still here. We can jump on it with a cool paper mode jump. It's sick. And now you'll notice the punies are back. That's because our sequence position is set back to chapter 2. Now we can just leave. And we're going to continue left through the sewers because it's a little bit faster than going back right, because we need to head back to the west side to get to Glitchville again. And this is the reason why I'm at 2 health, because to get over the block, we don't have the Ultra Hammer, so we can't just break it. We need to do Hazard Respawn Glitch, which does 1 hit of damage with the water, so we need to be at 2 health. We're left here, jump in the water, which puts us in peril, and also it's a little bit faster for movement to go this way. And we'll head back up to Glitchville. This is where the ticking will stop, by the way, if you're getting sick of that. I don't notice it anymore because I run this game a lot. But yeah, the ticking will stop when we start chapter 3. Maybe we've already started it, but when we actually... the game's start of chapter 3, it does like some sort of audio reset, so it gets rid of the ticking. There is one last thing we need to do to fully trigger chapter 3. If we don't do this correctly, then you would just be soft locked. Because when we enter this area, there's going to be 2 cutscenes that are playing. One is the enter the chapter cutscene, and the second one is the Yoshi egg that we didn't obtain normally. Because of our rank position, it shows up. All we need to do to prevent soft locking is just advance the text in a certain way. It's really easy to do. You'll see that in a second. Yeah, rip ticking. Gone now. Might still be hearing it in your head though. Text is popping up because of the Yoshi egg. All you have to do is just wait on this text box until Mario walks forward, and then close it. Then we can just mash the rest of the text, which is showing up as no messages English because you're not supposed to have Yoshi at this point. So there's no dialogue coded for him, so it just shows up as like an error message. The reason we're doing this whole thing is because we need to enter Grodus' office. Or, sorry, I said Grodus, Grubba's office. Because there's a vent in his office where you would normally get to from the other side later on in the chapter. But we can gain access to it the wrong way. First we need to watch this cutscene though. This cutscene here is the reason why we needed to derank before re-triggering Chapter 3 here. If you don't do that, cutscene that plays here shows Major League, and if your rank is in Major League, then the cutscene just ends when you're in Major League. So you don't gain access to Grubba's office, and then you're just essentially screwed. Another little sequence here that's here because of our rank position. It's not relevant. I was mashing the text there just because why not? No reason to though. Yeah, right here. The cutscene would just stop here if we didn't derank, and we would be stuck. So we just say no to sign up to fighting, and then we can move around here and jump onto that bookcase. It's really slick. It actually does use super boots, although you don't really see it, because it only super boots. The spin jump only shows up for 1 frame, and then you clip onto the bookcase. That is another reason why we need super boots. And also that's the reason why we need the super hammer, because we need to break that vent. So without it, you can't continue past that vent. The other side doesn't have any collision, because you're normally never supposed to be up there, with the vent still intact. Yeah, so I did that pause to equip Mega Rush. So because we're on peril, we have 5 extra damage from Mega Rush, 4 from the 2 Power Rushes. That's enough to kill Grubba. Normally the strat for this fight would be, in an RTA point, would be to do 2 sets of power bounces, or you could do 1 and then jump. But the point is to use an Ice Storm to try and stop his animation of powering up playing, which saves a little bit of time. It's only a 30% chance. But with all this extra damage, we have enough just to kill him in 1 power bounce, so we can just skip it that way. So just manipulate an 8 bounce, which is enough to kill him. That's the final boss of Chapter 3, I should say. This star power move, by the way, is Power Lift, which is a pretty cool star power. I think a lot of casual players use it, but it's super slow, so we're never actually going to use it. The only star power we ever used is Earth Tremor, because for the Shadow Siren fight. The one in Chapter 2 was Clock Out. We are now 17 minutes ahead of world record. This intermission is pretty much as boring as the first one. It's a little more interesting though, because at least you get to kind of move around the fortress a little bit. There actually is one little small time saver that I can do with a TAS setting here. I actually tried, I remember trying to do this in the first TAS that I made, but I could not get it, and then when I made this one I tried. I was like, yeah, I might as well just try this a little bit, see if I can get it, and I got it like right away. It's kind of funny. I discovered this accidentally one time when I was doing an RTA run. I just happened to do it by mistake. And I was like, oh, interesting, that would actually save a little bit of time. Probably like maybe half a second or so. So in this next room, there's a locker we need to open and then get the X-Naut uniform that's in there. But if you open it from the correct angle, you can actually grab the uniform from outside the locker like that, which pushes you to the right a little bit, so you don't need to walk around to get it, and you can just go straight to the changing room, saving a tiny amount of time. We're still doing the speed swaps with the X-Naut there. Like I said, you can do it on any character you control. Unfortunately, there's not another Bowser minigame on this one. I don't know why there isn't. There should be one for every intermission. I really wish they made one for every single one. Only the intermissions with a Bowser minigame are actually fun. I remember when I was playing this casually, I was like, every intermission, I was like, please let me play another Bowser minigame. Once I saw the first one, I was disappointed half the time.
Oh yeah.
The NPCs for this cutscene are not here because it's a consequence of triggering Chapter 6. They're not loaded properly, they're still underneath the map. Normally in an RTA run you would go to the shop here to buy a power punch and a point swap, but we don't need to do anything like that. We still have the power punch from Chapter 2, and we can do other strats. The point swap is to get for peril strats, but we can do something else. Coming up here, I'm going to do what's called a Yoshi disengage interrupt. Just getting off Yoshi 3 frames before hitting an email does that weird thing where you kind of immediately get off Yoshi. It saves 22 frames. It's pretty hype. We'll use it a bunch more in Chapter 4 here too. And by a bunch, I mean 2. Yeah, we do need to enter Chapter 4. We can't skip it because we need tube mode. But that's all we need from Chapter 4. We just have to go through the process of gaining access to it, grab tube mode, and then leave. A little bit of interesting Yoshi movement after we leave Frankly's house. There's an email we need to trigger before we get on Yoshi. But then there's also this like window that's sort of sticking out from the partner upgrade room. So if we delay getting on Yoshi a little bit, we can actually get under that window and get on Yoshi a little bit faster, which saves a bit of time over getting on immediately because the animation of hopping onto Yoshi. And just trigger the email, do one speed swap after, and then get on Yoshi under that window.
Oh yeah.
Now we can go to Chapter 4. So as I mentioned, we're only here for tube mode. And what we need to get tube mode is the curse chest key, the black key, and we also need the shop key to get to the area where the curse is. But not only can we not get the shop key because we don't have coops, but doing it this alternate way is just straight up faster. So we're going to do what's called shop key skip, using another Flurry Super Slide. There's one more trick that you could potentially do in this short segment to get tube mode to speed it up, which is what's called a trigger mirror outside. But it relies on NPC position, and I couldn't get it to save any time. It's when you come back to the mayor's house here. There's also 2 Yoshi disengage interrupts that we can do, as I mentioned before. Gotta talk to these NPCs to advance the story. So that door there, that's where the curse is. So right here, there's a cutscene of the mayor turning into a pig. Although you don't see it, but that's what's happening. And we can do a YDI, which is the Yoshi disengage interrupt, off that little cutscene. And this is where you could trigger this cutscene outside of this room if the NPC is in a good spot. But I couldn't get it to save any time. Now we just gotta go over to the gate, which we can do another YDI off of this little cutscene. Saved 44 frames there. Shoutouts to Evan44. And get the black key, and then we can go over to this room to do shock key skip to gain access to the curse. And super slide onto the seam. Then maneuver around it and jump straight into the room where the curse chest is. This room has a lot of loot. There's a defense plus badge, there's a life shroom blue sheet, and a jam and jelly. But we don't need any of that. All we need is the tube curse. Alright, so we got the tube curse, then we can leave to do a teleporter room early, which I'll start explaining now. There's a teleporter room that we want to gain access to. And to do that, the door's locked, so we can't just enter normally, obviously. So what we can do is we can store tube mode by holding R and then spinning the control stick to store the spin. And then next time you press R, it'll just immediately put you into tube mode. And that allows you to sort of buffer it onto a door, which changes your angle, and it'll get us to the teleporter room. See, I'm going to paper mode here. I'm spinning a little bit and then stopping, waiting for this platform, and then we can buffer the tube mode onto this door, and then it buffers going into tube mode and out, and it changes your angle so you go into the room next to the room that we did the tube mode off of, which is the teleporter room. This sends us straight to chapter 7. That skipped most of chapter 4. All we did in chapter 4 was get tube mode, and then it skips all of chapter 6 and 5, but you could skip 5 without that as well. There's other ways of doing that trick, getting into that room early. There's actually like a bunch of ways to do it. That's the fastest way for English, any percent. That was a recent find and is also English exclusive and PAL, but nobody cares about PAL. And it only works on the English version because you can't, I believe it's because of the spin storage, you can't store spin on the Japanese version like you can here. This chapter is actually like pretty boring since we don't have like the usual upgrades. We don't have the ultra boots, which would speed up this chapter. We kind of just have to do everything as intended. Normally you could skip going up this elevator to do the quiz, because you could do what's called elevator skip. You could technically still do it without the ultra boots, but you need to get an item drop. I didn't want to bother doing that because it messes up my star point route. And it wouldn't be that much faster anyway. Doing the shopkey skip, or the elevator skip saves like a minute, but setting it up would take like almost a minute. So. And you also don't have coops, so I'm not sure how you would. It might be difficult to do that. But I'm sure you could avoid it. But anyway, if I make a third task, maybe I'll try and incorporate that. I forgot to mention, when I first entered this chapter, I went to a room and just read a note on a table and then left. That was just to advance the sequence. If I didn't read that, then the game wouldn't consider me in this chapter. So you need to read that to continue. Here we just have to wait on this cycle, so I'm just kind of jumping around, messing around. Hit that block. I don't need that item, I'm just hitting it as I'm waiting. That's the last card key we need. This next area, there is a conveyor belt that you would normally use Bobbery and Vivian to get past, but instead we can do another paper mode item jump using the mushroom that we got from shop points like a long time ago. You could also do it another way, which is the way RTA does it. You can kind of go in paper mode and get first struck by the enemy there, which lets you squeeze past it, past the barrier on the conveyor belt. But doing the paper mode jump there is a bit faster. If we had the Ultra Boots, you could do background skip here, where you just spring jump and land back on these moving platforms to skip going in the background again. But since we don't have that, we can't do it. We gotta just go back here. Kinda sucks, this new trick. Getting to upper room earlier is making this chapter more boring, but much faster. Saves like 15 minutes. Now we can go to the Chapter 7 boss. So what I want to do in this fight is I want to get back in peril, so I can get that insane damage boost. And in order to do that, I'm just going to let the boss hit me. He does 6 damage, so I can guard it to do 5, but if I get hit with 5 damage twice, I'm going to die. So I need a way to gain 1 health back. Can any of you think of a way we can do that? and charging up here to gain more damage. And the answer is Dried Charm. Now we're at 6 health, I can just guard again, puts us in peril, and then with the badges and the charge, do enough damage to kill him in one power bounce. Gonna level up BP again, so we have enough for the last badge we're gonna equip, which is All or Nothing. We got the last intermission. Again, no Bowser minigame. Kinda sucks. There is a dialogue option here that's slightly faster if you choose the bottom option, so I'm gonna do that. If you choose the top option, there's like an extra animation that plays, because Bowser scares the penguin dude. But choose the bottom option, and there's also less text versus the second option. Now we can head to Chapter 8. And we can do our last YDI once we talk to Tech here to get out of the fortress. That's another elevator that you could skip if you had the Ultra Boots. But there's no way to do it without, because you couldn't even get an item drop there, because there's no enemies anymore. There's another section where the video gets a little blurry, but it fixes itself after this this cutscene.
Oh yeah.
Chapter 8 is pretty cool. There's a lot of fights that we need to get through. And there's like the biggest time saver glitch in the whole game, which is Palace Skip.
Oh.
This is where we can do our last YDI. There's another email to the left. Faster to ride Yoshi there. There's also a weird thing. You might have heard the there's like a double jump sound. Like you hear Mario jumping 2 times really fast in a row. I noticed like, it's a weird thing that happens after you do YDI. When you try and jump, you don't actually gain any height, and then you can jump again after like 3 frames. So you like jump really fast. And I want to keep jumping to maintain the speed swap speed, so can't just not jump, obviously. You hear that like really quick double jump sound. I think that's a consequence of the YDI. Don't believe that happens just from jumping right after an email. Yeah, we obtained all crystal stars, obviously. Now we can enter Chapter 8. The last star power that we got is, if you're wondering, is Supernova. It's a pretty cool damaging star power. It does 15 damage to anything on screen, any enemies on screen. It's slow, and we're not going to use it.
Oh yeah.
After dodging these enemies, we're gonna grab a shooting star, which will be used on Rotus in the boss rush. And then we can go down here with Yoshi, and then there's these gold cannons that are in our way throughout this part. And you can, to avoid the bullet bills, you can just run in between them like that. And then to avoid the actual cannons, you need to go in paper mode and walk at a pretty precise angle to squeeze in between their hitboxes. And we'll grab all or nothing. Run past these spikes. It's really dangerous, but it's completely safe. And you can actually just jump around these fire bars. Normally you would use tube mode, but it's a bit faster, actually quite a bit faster than going in tube mode, so do it that way instead. And this is Dark Bones. It'll be a pretty tough fight, I guess, because there's a lot of enemies that you need to deal with. So if you let them attack, they're going to do a lot of damage. But we can just use Flurry, manipulate RNG with that fancy menu. They have like a 70% chance each of running. In total, it's like I think it's a 12% chance of them all getting blown away. So we just manipulate that. It's not too bad to get. And then we get our last level up, which is actually going to be FP. We don't need any more BP now, and by leveling up FP, we can actually avoid having to consume jam and jelly to refill our FP. The next skip that's coming up is Palace Skip. This skip is pretty convoluted to watch if you've never seen it before. There's a lot going on. But there's a load zone in the room that's still active, even though we're not at that point at the game. It's just there beneath the floor. So if you can get to it, then you can skip ahead into the game. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to first manipulate a item drop from an enemy so we can use Goombella and do what's called a delayed Goombella buffer into the item, which what it does is it gives us the text from Goombella, but the enemies are still active, so they can still encounter us. And once you leave the battle, you have what's called text storage, so you have the text box still open, even though you're moving around. And then what we can do is we can get Yoshi on the seam, and then do a Yoshi teleport down to where the load zone is. That's kind of an overview of what's going to happen, and I'll talk about little details when we actually see the trick here. There's a lot of little things I'm going to do to set up for the battles after Palace Skip. It works out pretty nicely. You can just do all this during the skip itself, so you don't need to do any extra encounters or anything. And for the fight itself, to actually kill the Ember to get the item drop, we're going to use the last Fright Mask that we have. We don't want to kill him normally because it would mess up our leveling. It would cause us to level up on Bowser, which would take us out of peril, so we definitely don't want that. And luckily, using a Fright Mask doesn't affect drop chances. I paused there to manipulate RNG. Pause before was to equip all or nothing. The Fright Mask. I also need to manipulate a consumable item drop, because I need one for Palace Skip. To get an item drop, I'm going to do a delayed Goombella buffer into the item. The Ember is still active, so he can encounter us. And then I'll use this fight to get in peril. That item just confuses you. Might mess up your menuing, but it's fine. I can just manipulate RNG so it doesn't affect anything. We use that to take 9 damage. Then we can go over to this side, and by swapping out Yoshi, if a partner doesn't move after you swap him out, their hitbox is kind of messed up, so you can just sort of push them out of bounds. And then by carefully maneuvering Yoshi across the seam, we can keep him out of bounds, which is very important. We need to, right now we're heading to where that load zone is that I mentioned earlier. It's in like the middle of this room, so we need to move him over. And once we get there, we're going to come out of paper mode and use an item to make Yoshi, to force him out of paper mode. Because you can't use the partner if they're in paper mode, and we need to actually press X to use Yoshi. And if you do it as text box is closing, it teleports you to the height that Yoshi is at, essentially, which can get us below the floor and towards the load zone. Right here, I use the item. I use it specifically on Yoshi because I don't want to heal Mario, take him out of peril. And then just like that, we teleport below and get to the load zone. Normally you would encounter the Ember again, like in an RTA setting. But by getting a certain teleport height, it's very, very specific, like it's all frame perfect stuff. You can release hovering from Yoshi on a certain frame, and actually disengage from him and fall upwards towards the load zone, instead of encountering an Ember to disengage from Yoshi. It saves a full encounter, so it's like 10 seconds. And getting that key sets the sequence position, so now this area is loaded. Now we have the final boss rush. This fight's pretty standard. If you have enough damage to kill Grotus in one bounce, then you can simply just use an item or something to get rid of his minions. Which I'm going to use the shooting star here. Then we can just do a 6 bounce. And actually, it's kind of opposite of what you usually do with bounce caps, but I actually manipulated the game to cap me on 6 instead of giving me a 7 bounce, because with all or nothing on, I need to hit the action command to do damage. If you don't know what that badge does, if I didn't press A, I would do no damage. So I need to press A on the 6th bounce. But if I have a 7 cap, I'll do an extra bounce that does no damage, which would waste like a couple seconds, I guess. So I manipulated it so that it does cap me at the highest number that I want, so I just immediately jump off Grotus. I'll do the same thing on Shadow Queen. For Bowser and Cammy, I never actually do enough bounces to reach the cap, so I just do that extra bounce of no damage. There's no way to avoid it. This is also the reason why we upgraded FP, because we're gonna do we're gonna do 5 power bounces in a row, so we need 15 FP. I'm just doing stylish here to actually be stylish. I don't need to manipulate any RNG because I don't reach the caps. We can just super guard the fire, because this is the English version. Can't do that on Japanese. And a 5 bounce and then a 4 bounce kills Bowser, so just super good one more time and then kill him with another bounce. Those fights were pretty quick. Oh, I forgot to split Palace Skip. Damn, I was so good to split. Oh well. One missed is not that big a deal. I was too busy explaining Palace Skip. Split that one though. Got a lot of there's 2 big cutscenes with this fight, and then a little bit of gameplay to kill Shadow Queen. Sort of heavily weighted on the cutscene because we can do the fight so quickly. There's something I could have done to make this more interesting. I was debating whether to do it for a while, but I decided not to because it would waste some time. I wanted to be more optimal with this task than I was in the first one. But you could do when I did a similar thing to, like, actually the exact same thing as teleport a room early with tube mode. If you do it on the door entering Shadow Queen, you can do a so-called tube mode ending. Mario would be in tube mode at this point in the cutscenes, which I've never actually seen before. I'd like to see it at some point. But I will do paper mode ending, which doesn't waste any time, so there's that at least. So for Shadow Queen's first phase, you need to do a certain number of damage, 61 to be exact on the English version. On the Japanese version, it's only like 31. I don't know why it's such a big difference, but yeah. So we need to do 61 damage, which we can accomplish with just a 7 bounce. So this phase will go by really quickly. And then the invincible phase is a little more interesting. And again, I'm gonna manipulate the bounce cap so the game caps me at 7. You can get 6 capped on Shadow Queen, so I needed to manipulate getting a 7, but also only a 7, no more. So for this phase, the way to end it is just by doing attacks. You need to do 3 separate attacks on Shadow Queen. They can't be on the same turn. It has to be like completely separate. And so I do 2 of them by just jumping, and the third one, I can manipulate the crowd to help me out. I waited a bit on that text to manipulate Yoshi dying and also the crowd to help me out to do one of the attacks. So this shy guy is a bro, and he'll give us a bucket drop. So that counted as one of the hits, and that's the third one, and now the phase is over. That's pretty nice. Shoutouts, big shoutouts to that shy guy. And I manipulated Yoshi dying just so you don't have extra turns. Not too important, but might as well do that. So this is the paper mode ending. You see I went in paper mode there. It's just, all you do is just hold R. There's one frame where you can enter paper mode, or like jump if you want to, but if you go in paper mode and hold R, it stays throughout the entire end of the game. just have this long-ass cutscene and then the final fight. So I obviously want to get back in peril as quickly as possible. The attacks that the Shadow Queen normally does are just the like slaps with her hand, which do 7 damage apiece. So you can't manipulate that damage to do 9. But she has another attack where she takes out these little hands. They do 3 damage 4 times for the attack that I'll manipulate, so we can use that to easily get in peril. Funny how, like in the RTA setting, you definitely don't want those that attack to come out, because then you need to like guard everything and it's a pain in the ass. But for this, we want it. Since the first turn is just waiting, I'm just going to use it to give myself some extra damage. I can use charge again, and then I can use the power punch that we got way back in chapter 2. Which, if you don't know what power punch does, it just increases your attack power by 2 for 2 turns. So it's a little bit better than a charge. Charge only does it for 1 attack. The funny thing about this fight is the hardest part of it was manipulating the bounce cap, so I didn't get an 8 cap. I kept getting 8 caps. It was really frustrating. I wanted to only get 7, so I don't do that extra bounce of no damage. So here we go. First turn, we just charge up, use the power punch. Manipulated the little hands to do damage. Just super hurt the first one, that one does 7. And then we can take 9 damage and super hurt the last one, so it does only 9. Manipulate a 7 cap. And then just, I manipulated RNG, so all she does on this turn is just charge up. If she attacks, it wastes, like, I think it was like 10 seconds or something, so I just made it so she only charges up here. Then I just do another 7 cap. And she's dead. Minutes and 12 seconds ahead of world record. So just that fight alone saves minutes, because you only take, what was it, 2 turns. much, much faster. Or I guess like 2.5, I don't know. But yeah. It's really nice being able to just use that attack to get in peril on turn 1. It's pretty much the general strat for that fight, because you get that full heal before it, so there's no way to enter the fight in peril. This paper mode ending. But yeah, so you just want to like get in peril as quickly as you can, and then do your power bounces. The second fastest strat would be to like use double dip P. I think that way would still be faster though, because double dip P would take 2 turns. But at any rate, for the English version, we can't get that badge because you need the you need to get access to I'm blanking on the name, but you need the Ultra Hammer, which we can't obtain. I guess all there is just text mashing now. Rip Vivian 2018. She will be missed. Also rip Mouse, I guess. We used to get Mouse. But, yeah, nobody cares about Mouse. Or Bobbery, I guess.
Oh, yes. Oh. Oh.
Avoiding getting Mouse skips time in the epilogue as well. Kind of interesting. If you have that optional partner, you get an extra cutscene here. Too bad skipping like Vivian and Bobbery doesn't skip these cutscenes. But I guess they're just hard-coded, because why would you ever not have the partners, right? You have to obtain them. Final timing for RTA is ended on this iris wipe. It's like right after the last input. I'll end the timer there. I'll keep the video rolling through credits. Just cause. But I'll end the commentary there because there's nothing more to say. I'll just take my goodbyes after the timing ends here.
Oh yeah.
Alright, here it comes. Final RTA time of 2 hours, 58 minutes, 16 seconds. It might actually be a bit longer than it should be, because I think I started late at the start. It's hard to time it because the menuing is so fast. But yeah, I might get like a actual accurate end time of it, but that's roughly what it is. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks so much for watching. Put a lot of work into this. It took me like 2.5 weeks, I think it was. More than double the first task that I did because I was much more like strict with my movement as I was in the first one, so it took a little bit longer. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and if you want to see me live streaming, I stream on Twitch. I do runs of this game and other games as well, mainly Prince of Persia series. So yeah, have a good day and enjoy credits. I'm gonna peace out now. Hey, I'm back. Just want to say one more thing. Huge shout outs to the Paymera community. You guys are awesome. I love you all. Okay, now I'm out. Enjoy credits. bye.